previously on Podcast Without Pretense.
You know, guys, you know what ISP I really love? Fuck you, Comcast.
This is going to be lots of fun, but not really.
All right, so when you try to pick up somebody from the airport while miming, it gets really weird.
I'm glad that Eric, that you have stuck with the mime. We were kind of worried that in that lost episode between episodes where we talked a lot about it, that you weren't really going to stick with it. But the fact that you have, despite all the hardship you've encountered as a result of it, is admirable.
Yeah, and the other thing
I combine my two passions.
When we had you on Google Hangouts, since that's voice activated, you just never showed up. That's the problem with being a mime on the podcast when it was being produced automatically that one time.
He was trapped in the frame the entire time because he kept putting his hands up like, you know. Like,
and you could hear him
like
on the keyboard too.
Yeah.
He would do that too.
It's true.
By the way, I'm Jonathan Strickland.
By the way, I happen to be Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Eric Sandine.
And together, sometimes we change up the order where we introduce ourselves because it used to be that I would go last.
And together,
I say this because
you've been listening to him. So
I've been listening to the old episodes, and I'm like, I always went last before, which was painful because Eric would nearly always put a good 4.5 second pause between Iyaz introducing himself and then him remembering that he goes next, and then I went last, and then I don't know what episode we changed where I went first.
It's evolution. It just works itself out after a while.
Yeah, I think it was that one of us start rambling, or Eric would go last on the previously part, and then he would just stop talking, or we would just start rambling on, and then eventually Jonathan, at some point when we stop rambling, like, oh, we should introduce ourselves.
Yeah,
because we just stopped doing that. I think that actually happened in between. We introduced ourselves, then we stopped. So like, forget that, and then we finally went back to this style.
I am curious to see which episode, because I am listening to the old episodes. I'm curious to find out which episode we go the longest before we introduce ourselves. Like, is there an episode where we get like 6 or 7 minutes into it before we finally say, "Oh, we should introduce ourselves"? So first of all, for those of you listening to this later on, if you have not been paying attention, if you did not know, normally on this show, we watch a film and then we talk about the movie, and generally we do it so that we can test how long we can dedicate our full attention to the film. But it's just one of those times where
less than
because
50% of the time at this point yet? Like, that's the question. Like, normally, is it less than 50% of the episodes we've recorded yet? Because we can get there.
No, not yet. I mean, because we started. Well, I mean, it depends. Like, do you count number 1 as the first episode where we actually started talking about movies? Because that's 45 or 46.
Episodes don't count. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the ones before 45 or 46, we hadn't even considered doing this yet.
Oh, geez, we started at like 45.
Yeah. Well, 43 or 44 is when we first started talking about it, but it was somewhere around 45 or 46 when we actually had our first discussion about Troll 2, which was the first movie we ever picked to do this. But because of our various schedules, I'm the only one who's watched the film all the way through so far, which is fine. I mean, like, I was the one who suggested it, and I know the people who were making the movie, which is I had kind of an incentive to watch it, even if we hadn't picked it for the show, or if I hadn't picked it for the show. So because we don't have that film to discuss, we've got other things we can talk about. One of those is Iyaz has already played this game once. This is where I pull quotes from a previous episode, Podcast Without Pretense. And
Podcast with pull quotes.
Jokers, yes, I ask you jokers, who said it? What film were we discussing at the time? And if you can think of any context for the quote, that's good too. Now, for this particular one, I'm experimenting. I'm trying different things. So for this one, I specifically kept all the quotes from the same episode. So all of these are about the same movie. So as soon as you guys figure out which movie it is, you got that part for the rest of it, because I didn't mix them up. And you might get it on the first try. So because Iyaz already did this once, Eric, I'm going to have you go first.
All right.
So here is your quote. See if you can tell me who said it and about what movie? I'm here for exposition. God be with you. And that's it. The quote
One of us said that?
One of us said that.
Hold on.
I'm here for exposition.
Is it you, possibly?
Is it me?
No.
Is that your guess?
Yeah.
Yes,
is that...
it was me. Yes, I said that.
Okay. Yeah. Exposition was the trick there. I can't see Iyaz or using the word exposition.
What do you know what film it was about?
I'm here for exposition. God bless.
God be with you. And that's it.
Oh God. I have no clue.
All right, so we're going to the next quote. Iyaz, here's your quote that you have to guess.
Okay.
I tried to follow the logical progression of the film twice and lost it both times. Who said it?
It's not. I'm going to say that's definitely not me. Logical progression sounds like a Sandine thing.
You are correct. Eric said that quote. Do you know what film it was from?
Follow logical. I'm going to say The Terminators.
You are incorrect. We go to the next quote. All right, here's Eric. This is your turn. The telltale sign of this movie is that at least Iyaz and I didn't get lost in the plot. We didn't see the plot at all. Was there a plot? Who said it?
Did I say that?
You did say that, Eric.
All right.
So far, you guys are great at figuring out who said it. Still don't know what idea. Okay, here's the next quote. Iyaz, this one goes to you. They're not threatening, and their eyes don't glow.
That's you, Strickland.
No. First one that's wrong. This one was you, Iyaz.
That was my other choice.
Can you guess the movie? They're not threatening, and their eyes don't glow.
Now The Terminators?
No, these are all from the same movie.
It's all the same movie. Wait. Oh, crap.
I said for this one, I've chosen all the quotes are from the same episode, so they're all about the same movie.
So we're talking exposition, their eyes don't glow. Okay.
Something that should be threatening, but clearly is not. And whatever it is, their eyes don't glow. Also, apparently this movie had no plot.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something that prompted me to say, I'm here for exposition, God be with you, and that's it. This is hard because we've watched a lot of awful movies and our recording schedule has been so haphazard.
I have no idea.
Okay, Eric, here's your next one. This is the last quote I have, by the way. It's the last quote I have. We have different levels of how bad movies are. So for this one, we only spent 15 minutes in discussion. If it were really bad, it would be an hour and a half. Who said it?
Oh. I want to say that was Jonathan.
It was Eric.
Damn.
You said this.
That also sounds like a me thing to say, but
you said this about a movie we watched where it was not bad enough for an hour and a half. Yeah, we only talked about it for 15 minutes.
Was it wait, was it crap. What movie did we watch before the 404?
The 17-minute discussion. No, I will tell you though, it was 15 minutes of discussion of the movie. The episode was an hour and 4 minutes long.
So this is Apollo 18 then, isn't it?
No.
What the
No?
Okay, the movie, do you guys officially give up?
Any last guesses? Their eyes don't glow.
This is really hard too, because unless you have a full list of all the movies we've talked about, it's really hard to remember.
Yeah, I have to pull this from memory.
This one in particular is not terribly memorable. Okay, so the movie was Children of the Corn 7.
That's why eyes don't glow.
I'm here for exposition, God be with you, and that's it refers to the Michael Ironside character who was a priest in the movie who only had dialogue in one scene, and the rest of the time he would just kind of show up and say, God be with you, and leave. And that's why I said, I'm only here for exposition. God be with you. And that's it. Yeah. So that was the movie. I knew it was going to be a hard one. And I was picking that one because I was like, well, it was episode 73. So it was well after we had started doing the experiment, but also long enough ago that it would not be easy to remember. So very well done on guessing who said what. You guys got more correct than you got incorrect. And I can't wait to see how this turns out next week.
We're playing our own quiz show.
Well, and here's the thing is that I might end up mixing it up where I'll, maybe next episode I'll pick from different movies.
Maybe we should maybe one of the sets of quotes and movies, or that question could be for the audience and the audience only. So at least it's not them just waiting for us. Maybe they can like tweet the answer or something. So they at least are like, okay, we're listening to these guys guess shit they have said about movies that they should know, and it shows how little they care about this actual show.
I would argue that most of the movies we have picked have been so bad that it's therapeutic to wipe as much of them from our memories as possible. So there is no shame in not remembering that this was about Children of the Corn 7.
We could give away. I picked that movie, I think. We could give away a PWP. Actually, we have nothing with PWP on it. We can give away a GFQ thing. First, we have to like steal it from GFQ, and then give it away.
Yeah,
I'll go steal one from Andrew's house. I'll take a fabric marker and write "from PWP with love." And then, how about that?
Yeah, just draw a big X in the GFQ and write PWP under it.
Well, X and O, like hugs and kisses.
Hugs and kisses, PWP. I think you guys did admirably well. Particularly, I mean, it's clear that you recognize our own voices more often than not. So, and it's funny because it was only when you were confronted with things that you yourselves have said that you started to get a little uncertain, which is also.
So from now on, every time.
Is that me?
Every time now. We're going to make sure that we have some distinct speech pattern when we do reviews. So, like, Eric, you can fake a French accent. You were like, the plot is no good. And they're like, and Jonathan's got to tell us later on 100 episodes, you said the plot is not good. And then, it's Eric. Of course.
Or you just pick a phrase that you say before you say anything else. So you say, like, well, shit, fire, and save matches. This movie was one hell of a horrible film.
You got to be able to put that in between.
I'll list each random key curse words that I will just use.
Well, I will say that I think you're the only one who ever used the C word on the show.
That's true. I did.
Yeah.
Was that in the show?
It was next week on Podcast Without Pretense.
Oh, that's right.
you ended the show that way, and then you killed me. Iyaz and I were gone. Like, we were trying so hard not to laugh so there'd be a clean break, and then we were gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that was kind of fun to go back and listen to that. I did that one a little late. Like, I did that one probably about 20 minutes before we started. My goal is to do it earlier so that I'm not rushing and I don't just, write down anything. I write down some of the stuff that I think is particularly amusing. And of course, obviously that's going to depend upon which movie we pick. Cause in some of them, they were just so bad that we barely spent any time talking about them, particularly the early ones. But we'll continue to give this a shot, and I'll see if I can find ones that are.
I think it's a very Podcast Without Pretense thing to do, which is to make the show about itself. Yes. Eventually we'll produce so many episodes that the show will just be about previous episodes.
Yeah, it becomes this recursive podcast until, like, eventually every episode will essentially be a clip show.
Well, Jonathan actually said it, but he was quoting Eric, who was quoting himself when he was quoting Jonathan.
Right.
And so that is why Jonathan said it.
Trick question. The quote I gave you was not from episode 73. It was from episode 131 when I was giving you the quote the second time.
You could tell because I winked when I said it, which you could hear. in the read.
I put a pause in a different place. Yeah. So, since we don't have the other film to talk about yet, have you guys seen anything? Like, I have not seen any movies at all. Other than I did watch Oculus on Netflix the other night.
I did too.
Oh, did you? Both of you guys did recently, right? We can talk about that. I saw it a while ago, but yeah.
So
if
you
Oculus,
want to, yeah, let's talk about it a little.
Iyaz can tell us what's in the box. I mean,
oh yeah, well, I told you. Well, I previewed this. All right, so if you want to see behind me, there's a box. Yeah. Now the reason why I'm keeping this box.
What's in the box?
It's another box. Okay, inside the box is a toaster box. Okay, and inside the toaster box is packing material for the toaster box because I'm not keeping. I'm not going to throw out the box until I find out. Check if the toaster's working for more than a week. That's all.
Yeah, great.
It's a toaster oven box in an Amazon box, and there's nothing exciting about it other than I have no other place to store it for now.
Well, I think we can say that at least it appears that Amazon did not use a comically large box to put your second box.
No, this fit well.
It's a toaster oven. If people want to know more about it, this would be very exciting. It's a Black & Decker. It costs about $30. And the reason I chose it was because we're moving from a 2-slice toaster that had a mouse coming out of it, which I threw out, to a toaster oven, which has a door. And
wait, did the mouse always come out of it?
No. At least once. And that one time that I saw Bruce come out of the toaster, I threw the toaster out. Well, yes, he is Bruce. Did we not talk about Bruce?
No. So this is an actual mouse.
Oh, yeah. Okay, this is... I talk.
So this story is better than you thought it was.
Well, I thought we had talked about this, but
when you said a mouse came out of it, at first I was like, okay, I have some questions. One of them is, do you mean like a squeak, holy shit, there's an actual mouse coming out of our toaster? Or do you mean this is a novelty toaster oven or toaster that's got like a mouse attached to it?
There's a mouse on it.
Yeah, or like a bruise that a boxer gets. It's a mouse on its eye. No, it was an actual rodent. So what happened is one day I hear some weirdness around in the kitchen, and I take a look, and a mouse was kind of running out of the gas range. And I was like,
wow.
Well, shit. That's not good.
Oh, so you found a suicidal mouse.
Right. So, or it shows you how often I use the gas range. So this damn thing, at one point, I'm sitting on the couch, and then I see this mouse again, and there was a pie box on top of the gas range. And the mouse is on top of the pie box. It stands up on its back legs, looks around, and then I turn the lights on because I see the damn thing, and then it runs back into the gas range. I'm like, this fucking mouse is essentially Batman because the way it just kind of like, I will survey. So I named it Bruce after Bruce Wayne. So Bruce and I had some disagreements, put some traps around it, and I couldn't catch him. And then
your disagreement was you wanted him to die, and
what you should do is kill his parents, which will then propel him into a life of vigilante.
I'll work on that. But actually, so I put some traps out, and I did not successfully get Bruce. And so one day after making toast, I hear some weird springy noises. I'm like, that sounds like the toaster. So I turn the light on, and out comes Bruce, running out of the toaster, running behind my microwave. And then I was ticked because, one, I had toast already, and two, Bruce was still alive. So
you thought it was raisin toast.
I thought it was more of a rye. This crunchy little things. Anyway, I'm really glad it wasn't rye. I would be really questioning what I ate. So anyway, I put the glue traps behind the microwave this time, not disturbing anything back there, and Bruce was caught the next morning. And Bruce was about this big. He looked a lot taller on the top of a pie box, and I felt bad for the little guy. So Liz put him in a bag, and I threw him in the garbage, and that was the end of that. The toaster was already in the garbage. So he was reunited with the toaster. Then, because we like toast, bought this toaster oven. and it fits inside of a shelf in the cabinets over the microwave. So if a mouse really wants to get into this, they have to go through like half an inch of plywood or particle board, or climb up the electrical cable, because I drilled a little hole, which it could do, and become one with the toaster oven. And story.
Wow.
Better than I was expecting when I asked what was in the box.
Yeah.
I felt bad for Bruce. He just wanted to live.
And then you used a glue trap, the most inhumane of traps.
I could have you're right. Well, look, the little fucker doesn't pay rent. So I got to think of it that way too. So if he wants to pay.
I mean, I've just used non-kill traps myself, but I mean, that's just.
What are non-kill traps? What like those big giant plastic ones?
They're not usually big giant ones. They're usually like they're a little seesaw, right? So you put them down, and they look like a little rectangular, kind of cubicle thing, not cube, but prisms deal. And it's got a little bit of a pivot. And when it's empty, you put it down so that the open end is against the ground, and the mouse will crawl in, go to the end of it, and the weight of the mouse causes it to pivot, and then the door swings shut. So the mouse is caught inside the container unharmed. And then what you can do is you take the trap with the mouse inside it, and you go to an overpass, and you just whip your arm really fast, and those fuckers will fly.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
It's like, all I need, if I just had a pet snake, I would go with the humane trap and then feed the other thing. But
no. If you had a pet snake, what you would have to do is, and this is true,
freeze it.
If you had to feed the snake, you could freeze it, which would be, more humane than glue. But I had a friend who used to feed snakes at a local nature center. And so her job was to take the mice and whack them against a hard surface to disorient them enough so the snake could then take it down without any danger of being injured by the rat or mouse.
I like the word disorient, because it normally is very like, okay, I am one with the world. I know all things. And then it just thwacked on the head.
Essentially giving the mouse a concussion. It's
a little gabble.
Pretty much giving the mouse a concussion. So
it can't play quarterback anymore either. But
right, yeah.
I can in the NFL for years.
If you pick Bruce for your draft league fantasy football, man, you need to reassess your team.
Yeah, this is on the DL. Best. Because unless he got out of
right, at best, Bruce is on the injured list. Yeah,
Bruce has one less leg. I'm sorry, Bruce. I do feel bad about it, but
yeah. Well,
don't show up.
It's a pest that you have to get rid of, and honestly, like it's a lot easier for me to say use a no-kill trap because I live in Georgia. You can actually go someplace that is not close to. Yeah, you can go someplace that's not close to a lot of other homes. It's not that dense of an urban environment, and release the mouse into the wild.
I should have taken Bruce to the park.
Yeah. You could just be like, release Bruce in Central Park and just say, you are on your own, big guy.
If I ever have a problem with mice, I'll get a no-kill trap. We'll get on Bart together. We'll go to Golden Gate Park. Just release him right there. He'll have a great life.
Yeah, because nothing will ever attack it and kill it. Just fend for yourself.
Nope.
But yeah, so that's the story of the box.
Capture the mouse. Take one of those tourist trips to Alcatraz. Release the mouse on Alcatraz.
Wait, why not just leave it on the boat?
No. Release it on Alcatraz. Allow it to become king of Alcatraz.
Send it other mice to subjugate. Suncast in the chat room. I love this. We cannot guarantee that no animals were harmed during the making of this episode. That's not true. Bruce died a while ago. Although I guess I could punch one of the dogs or something, but that would be kind of dickish. But they're big dogs. Yeah. They'll be all right.
I have not injured an animal since we started recording, and I don't have any animals in nearby punching or kicking range. So I'm fairly safe from harming an animal, barring some weird instance where something crashes through my window or something.
Always possible. Yeah. No, my cat's in the other room, so it's all you on this one.
All right, if the dog does get out of its gated area and then attacks me, I will punch it in the face. That's a guarantee. If that happens, I will punch a dog in the face. So
Iyaz the dog puncher.
Yeah, dog whisper's been taken. Just you punch a dog in the face like a shark. Nobody do this, please.
I did accidentally pinch Tybalt's face, and that I was at the kitchen counter and I was closing a drawer, and he had jumped up on his hind legs to kind of nose at the drawer, and when I closed it, it pinched his face. He's got a little red spot from where his face got pinched, and he was very upset for about 5 minutes, and then after that he was acting his old self again. But his face has got a little bit of a red swollen spot. It's nothing too bad. It's just clear that he suffered a little minor trauma there, but that's enough to make me feel guilty as hell.
You made him look like a harlot, just this blush on one side and on the other. It's not very nice.
Well, it's more like a smear of lipstick because it's close to his jowls. But yeah, poor little guy. But no, I say poor little guy, but you won't be able to see it. But all up and down my arm, you can't really tell at all. But all up and down my arm,
you can see it. I can see the scratches.
There are all these scratches that are there from his claws, because he likes to tackle and hold on. He's not humping, which is good, but he is trying to grab onto my arm so that he can then open his mouth. And he doesn't bite. He just opens his mouth and shoves his mouth against my hand and drools.
So when this video is posted, I'm creating a GIF of Jonathan Strickland saying he's not humping, which is good.
Yes.
Because your actual physical movements for that was perfect.
Yeah. I just wanted to make it clear that he's not, as far as I can tell, attempting to assert dominance in that way.
So if he was, let me ask you this. Would the dog think he's got dominance over you or your arm?
You're asking me to psychoanalyze my dog, which I gave up on months ago.
No, actually, I'm thinking about like with little dogs, is that a thing that they actually think they've conquered a part or the whole animal?
Well, he seems to at least grasp the idea that arm is part of me and not its own entity with its own motivations and dreams.
Why did you make that logical leap? What is that leap?
You're sitting here like talking about like a dog. Is he thinking that he's dominating the arm or you? That suggests that there are two entities involved at least.
So you think that a dog can't separate two entities?
I think a dog can separate two entities.
Acting in unison, probably not.
If they're two different entities, like my dog recognizes that my wife and I are two different entities. But my dog also recognizes that my arm is part of me.
I don't know. That's an assumption.
It's a pretty good one because
are your dogs
what he'll do is if he exactly. How dumb are your dogs?
No.
Because Tibble will attack my arm and then he'll look at me. He knows that's me attached to the arm. It's not like, hey, look, here's a toy. I can drag this around the house. It's, hey, look, here's part of Dad. I'm going to drag Dad around the house.
Okay. I'll just go on with this then. I'll move on now because this is interesting.
Well, it's interesting because it is telling us a lot about your dogs.
No, only one of them is that dumb. The other one's quite good.
Okay. Well, Tybalt is unfortunately really smart. And I say unfortunately because it means that he gets bored easily. So we have to constantly find new ways to entertain him or occupy him so that he doesn't develop destructive behaviors. So we have to get lots of. Yet? Haven't made him watch Lost. I think I need to pick something that I can stand. I tried watching Lost and I think I got 5 or 6 episodes in and I just said, this isn't worth it. I already know where this show is going because everyone talked about it.
And I watched The Leftovers, which is by the same guy, and it's slightly better, actually. Yeah. It's on HBO.
I'm sure if I had watched Lost when it first came out, and if I had watched it the way it came out, where you had to wait a week to see what happened next, I would have enjoyed it more. But Lost is one of those shows where I'm not sure it benefits from the binging on Netflix approach.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, it's true.
There are actually a couple of shows where I've noticed where they really depended upon there being a week between episodes, where they set something up toward the end of an episode and then they pay it off near the beginning of the next episode. Yeah. But they change details. So in episode 1, it ends a certain way and gives you the implication that a particular series of events is about to unfold. In episode 2, you watch it, but it plays out slightly differently, thus justifying whatever plot episode 2 is. And if you've got a week to separate them, you might have forgotten how episode 1 ended. But when you watch them on Netflix, you're like, bullshit, that's not how the last episode ended.
I want to say Knight Rider did that a lot. They would be like, okay, you're hurtling. They actually do it between like commercial breaks. Like they're hurtling towards doom. And then like they'll come back and they're like only 2 feet away from like anything that's safe. So it's like, wait a second, something's not right here. Or Avengers Grimm, the movie we watched. Like between scenes that would happen. Where it's like, okay.
Well, that was just because it was an Asylum Pictures film.
That doesn't benefit from existing. That's the problem there.
I would say like Dukes of Hazzard was really bad about that. I mean, I remember Dukes of Hazzard.
Those Duke boys.
You'd have the General Lee would be in the middle of a jump and then it would pause and then Waylon Jennings would come on. Well, them Duke boys found themselves in spot trouble. Wonder how they're going to get out of this one. Go to commercial break, comes back, they're drinking coffee in a Starbucks or something, and there's no mention of the car anymore. Someone shoots dynamite with a bow and arrow, and then you're just like, what the fuck? What happened to the jump? That probably didn't happen.
It's because Starbucks was not in the South then. That's the only thing I'm going to say that was wrong with that.
Everything else is right. Well, they were. You know what the Duke boys were, right? Like what their occupation was, right?
Just good old boys.
Well, yeah, they were good old boys.
But you know what? Didn't mean no harm.
They were moonshiners.
That's it.
Yeah, they were transporting illegal alcohol. Like that was their gig. For some reason the cops were really on their tails, man.
Well, the town of Hazzard was really dull otherwise, right?
Well, it was a county, actually. It was Hazzard County. It wasn't a town.
I love that this is the actual discussion. We go for you think about a discussion about the arm on a dog, that whole entity concept. What? Picking out municipalities and continuity errors in Dukes of Hazzard.
It was Hazzard County, Georgia. I grew up in Georgia. This shit's important.
You're partial to Georgia.
This shit's important. But no, the actual show I was thinking of that did this at least a few times was Chuck, where at the end of one episode of Chuck would start to lead into the next episode. But if you binge watch it, you're like, now, hang on a minute. That's not how that last episode ended. But there were other ones that were like that too. Chuck was pretty bad about it, but there was some other show. I can't remember what it was. There was some other show that I would watch, and not only would it be a different, like it would just be the ending of the previous episode, but totally reshot, like different camera angles, different takes, so people are delivering lines differently. And even including either dropping lines that were in the previous episode or adding new lines that were not in the previous episode. And it drove me nuts. I'm like, Jesus, just be consistent, because now we're in an era. You had the luxury of ignoring this before, because most people were consuming television by watching an episode a week. You had a full week to kind of allow an episode to kind of fade into memory, where you didn't necessarily remember how things had just ended. But ever since DVRs, that has not been the case. People have been able to binge watch, or DVDs,
it's been a while.
just DVD sets. Yeah. So you gotta, if you're writing a show, if you're a showrunner, you need to make sure the ending of one episode and the beginning of the next episode, if it is truly like serialized television.
I mean, speaking to all the showrunners that listen to our show, Dan Harmon's out there. He's a listener.
I'm just saying.
I can't name another showrunner.
I'm just saying, dude. Like we have become known for our criticism, and they should listen to us.
they should be listening.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this is it's one of those pet peeves, because it's something that I think showrunners do have to think about, is the fact that now we live in an era where binge watching has become the norm. So you have to be ready to have your show accommodate that and take it into account. You can't take the shortcuts that you could take before, where you can create misdirection simply by rewriting what had already happened and retconning everything.
I thought the case with Chuck was that they were very aware that they're. I mean, it's very tongue-in-cheek, and the concepts are kind of stupid. And I thought it was like, okay, well, this is, if you did binge watch it, and I think I watched a couple of episodes back to back to back, like on Hulu or something a long time ago. It was like, I did notice the same thing, but I was like, well, this show is kind of goofy. I think I'm just going to go with it, because if I'm going to actually question the believability between episodes, I should be questioning like the entire show. But
the premise of the show, Hazzard. The premise of the show is so cartoony, right? You have a character who has had information imprinted on his brain through a series of encoded images that trigger his synapses in such a way that he contains all the information of all the special agencies of intelligence in the United States. So he's become a repository of information. There are a couple of big problems with this. One is that it's a static file. So information, like intelligence, gets outdated really fucking fast because conditions continue to change. Yeah. And yet, episode after episode, he is still incredibly accurate and effective. Although he does get a couple of updates in the series. So they do try to answer that at least 2 or 3 times, but it's so sporadic that you immediately say, like, well, how useful is a tool of all the information that they've gathered so far when it's only up to that point, and anything after that point is not included in that file? That doesn't make much sense. Beyond that, they still have all that information. It's just that Chuck is one of the databases that contains this information.
Well, one of the larger problems with Chuck and that whole concept was, wait, it only takes like 40 seconds to get the information. Shouldn't you make this something you don't accidentally see? Like, shouldn't it take like an hour? Like, you're supposed to be sitting there. It's going to take a while. Intentionally, you can code it slowly. So that way you're like, okay, I'm up to 1935 now. But like, it shouldn't. Is Chuck just kind of wanders in like, and we're all. But anyway, again, questioning Chuck.
Yeah, no. But the things that bothered me about Chuck was that even if you suspend your disbelief and go with the premise, which is goofy as hell but fun, it's a fun premise. The thing that got irritating had nothing to do with the premise. In some cases, it had to do with the fact that the showrunners were juggling the relationship issues between Chuck and Sarah, who is his CIA handler, who's assigned to Chuck. And immediately Chuck is attracted to Sarah for obvious reasons. She's smoking hot and extremely capable. So she's hot, she's intelligent, and she's very capable. So incredibly attractive woman. But then they spend the next like 3 or 4 seasons setting up where he's attracted to her, but she's being very businesslike. Then revealing the fact that she is secretly attracted to him, but is trying not to acknowledge those feelings because she feels that it will compromise the mission that she's on. And it goes back and forth where literally episode to episode, you'll get to one where Chuck is completely hung up on her. and he's trying to figure out a way to express his feelings that is sincere and not being spied upon by all these different agencies. In the very next episode, he'll act completely cold to her, like he's given up and he's moving on. And then the next episode, he's all hung up on her again. So that's the other problem, is that if you watch these, you binge watch them, the character relationships from episode to episode aren't consistent until finally the two of them, spoiler alert, hook up and get married, which I think is season 5 is when they're officially like a couple. But that was something else that was irritating. I was like, I can buy this dumb premise, even though they're not consistent with it. I can buy the dumb premise. It's the relationship thing that really bugged me. But I still enjoyed the show. It's still funny.
I never finished it.
Yeah.
When they basically said you have no budget, so like the next like 8 episodes I was watching were all in one room.
Wow, they were all bottle episodes.
There was a bunch of them, like not in a row, but they would be like, here's the bottle episode, then there's like a flashbacky episode, and then another bottle episode. It's like, okay, we got it. They cut your budget extensively. I understand the problem here. And it was all over like the entertainment websites, like, Chuck has no money. They could either cancel it or they can give it no money. So like, I guess the bottle episodes are all right, but they did get stuck a lot. And I just got sick of it because I'm like, you guys are spies. Like, get the fuck out. Like, escape.
Becca and I got all the way to season 5, which was the final season. I think we got 2 or 3 episodes in season 5, and then we just stopped. We didn't, it was weird. It was just one of those things where we weren't in the mood to watch it again. So not too long ago, we kind of started up again. We're just in season 2 right now, so we're not even halfway through. But the goal is to actually finish it this time, because just for closure, it was one of those things where I was like, well, I mean, they're not going to make any more of these. I don't think this is going to be one that gets picked up by Amazon or Hulu or Netflix or something. So we thought we'd go ahead and finish it, but we just haven't found the motivation to continue. But we wanted to go back from the beginning and go through them again, because some of the earlier episodes are genuinely entertaining and charming, and even some of the later ones are too. But we just lost the motivation to keep up with it. Same thing for me anyway. My wife might feel very differently about this, but Supernatural. We watched several seasons of Supernatural, although I think we're about 3 or 4 seasons behind at this point. I just got tired because every damn season is the same. You've got you spend the first part of the season with the 2 brothers not completely trusting one another, getting into an insane amount of trouble because of that lack of trust, coming to some sort of reconciliation where their trust is restored, then facing off against a big bad guy, then one or both of the brothers is either killed or sent to some place like purgatory or hell. And then the next season, everyone is magically restored to being alive again, and the trust issues have once again broken down. Rinse and repeat. That's every season. So you're like, you can take bets when a season begins. Which of the 2 Winchester brothers will be dead at the end of this season? Mm-hmm. Because one of them will be, maybe both of them.
That's basically why I stopped watching 24. That's why I stopped watching Burn Notice. I stopped watching House, not just for the season arcs, but the procedural aspects.
That's great. That's a great point. Yeah, House. I never watched Burn Notice, but House, I definitely.
I enjoyed House. I thought the writing was fun. The characters were fun. There was one episode where they decide to actually solve the medical mystery within the first 5 minutes of the episode, and the rest of the 39 minutes are dedicated to the characters, which was way more fun because you're getting to know them a little bit better instead of being it's not Lupus, it's Lupus.
I was just about to say, like, in the first 5 minutes, did they find out it was Lupus?
It wasn't Lupus. Actually, it might have been Lupus. I don't remember. I just remember it was over so fast, and I was just shocked. I'm like, holy shit, that's over.
I know there was an episode. I don't think I saw it, but I know there was an episode where it did turn out to be Lupus. I also remember there was an episode where it was after House had no longer had his original team, and it was before he had assembled a new team. And so he had the janitor standing there and listening to him while he spoke out loud. And the janitor at one point said, is it Lupus? And the House looks at him and he's like, what did you just say? And the guy's like, I just hear it all the time.
That's a good in joke within that program. But yeah, I didn't see the last. Yeah. I think I stopped after season 5, and the thing that set me off was this one like web comic that showed Burn Notice. They go every episode of Burn Notice, and it's like 9 panels, and I was like, well, shit, that's right, because basically any USA show is kind of like that. It's the same fucking episode with different cultural references, which are enjoyable. Like it's not that I don't find them enjoyable. It's more like I don't feel like I have to watch it anymore because I've seen one episode. I'm like, that was pretty clever. Like I liked Psych, but same kind of thing, very formulaic.
Yeah,
and
Psych
fun,
was exactly the same. Yep.
There's no reason to watch.
This is kind of how I felt about, in general, in large form, about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In that, Joss Whedon is often lauded as one of the better writers for television in particular, for serialized or episodic television. And there are a lot of extremely entertaining episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, including some that are not at all formulaic, that are really interesting, like the choices made. Like Hush, one of my favorite episodes, which is the one where the gentlemen come in and no one can talk. That was amazing. It was a great and very entertaining as characters tried to find ways to communicate with one another with like facial hand gestures and facial expressions, that kind of stuff. The slideshow. They actually
used. I love that they actually used whiteboards, because like in every other thing, nobody ever figures out how could we ever communicate. They're like, we'll just write it down. Like
I love that in that moment where they're having that group discussion with the whiteboards and everything. There's one moment where Sarah Michelle Gellar's Buffy character does a stabby motion, but everyone misinterprets it as she's making the jerk off motion.
Well, they said how can we get rid of the gentleman, whatever it is, and then she starts doing that motion, which everyone is horrified to see.
And then she pulls out a steak. Yeah. Which was great. It was just a great moment. So yeah, there's some very entertaining episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. However, if you go season to season, they follow the same pattern, and it gets really frustrating, because one thing that Joss Whedon is often credited as being very like female empowerment, feminist kind of pro woman approach to his writing, for good reason, I would say, except if you look season over season of Buffy, it all falls into the same pattern, which is that Buffy starts out uncertain and disempowered. Like because of her position at the beginning of the season, she is not confident in her abilities. So in the first season, it's because she's transferred to a new high school, for example. As the season goes on, she gains confidence and competence, both in her personal life and as a slayer, so that by the end of it, when she's facing off against the big bad, she's capable of winning, and she wins. And then the next season, she comes back and she's got to go back to square one, where she's not in a comfortable place anymore, and has to go through that same process every single season. So somewhere around 2/3 the way into the season, she's starting to really get to grips with her abilities, or whatever the situation happens to be, so that she's ready to face off against the bad guy in the end. And that happens every single season. A couple of times it makes sense. Like when she goes to college, the idea being, all right, well, it's not the monster slaying that has her frazzled. It's the fact that she's gone from high school to college. It's a different environment. That's where her uncertainty comes in. Perfectly makes sense. But there are 7 seasons of Buffy, and every single one follows that pattern. And you would hope
kill her twice, like 3 times.
So, no, I think they only kill her twice. She dies once in the first season and once in season 4 or 5.
That's
whichever one before they went.
Yeah, if you die, I think the next time you show up, you might be a little bit not as confident, and if you die a second time, you might actually maybe a little bit more confident when you come back. But
the first time she died, she was only dead for a moment.
Still dead, still matters.
Yeah, not so much as like she didn't go to heaven and then get pulled from it like she did the second time. but that was just an issue I had, was that you never felt like the Buffy at the beginning of the subsequent season was the same character who was the badass at the end of the previous season. Like, all the progress she had made in the year previous was gone, and she had to start over. And to do that 7 times is a little much.
Okay, so on that note, I think it's time to look into the future. Next time on Podcast Without Pretense.
Guys, I love where our reboot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer is going. So she starts off kick-ass, but then gets more and more disempowered until by the end, she's, just a female for objectification. Great idea, Iyaz.
I really thought that the thing I was putting up my nose was Afrin, but it was dog ear cleanser, but my nose feels clean.
Yeah, so still just miming, picking up from the airport, nobody gets it. But I figured out I could write on a whiteboard, and that seems to work.